Pakistan, it's a country in Asia which stays in news all the time, especially when it comes to its rivalry with India and friendship with China. But in recent time, it's in the news for its economic crisis, rising debts, and falling economic growth. Question arises, how come Pakistan ended up in this kind of state? Let us try to understand through the small video. In order to understand Pakistan's economic crisis, let's dig into its economic history. Pakistan gained its independence in the year 1947 from British rule. After its independence, Pakistan was very poor with undiversified economy. It was depending solely on agrarian economy for its growth. After gaining independence, it brought several reforms and changes in its agriculture industry, mainly to boost its exports. By 1950s, Pakistan adopted Soviet model of 5 years planning in order to shift its economy from agrarian to industrial. It somewhat turned out to be effective, as by 1960s GDP growth was between 6.5% to 7%, which is considered as above average. By late 1960s, Pakistan started getting politically unstable, and by early 1970s it was pushed into full-scale war with India that ended up with creation of Bangladesh and losing its eastern part of the country. This war devastated Pakistan's economy, which required massive bailouts and restructuring in order to get restored and bring down inflation and economic turmoil. In order to come out from this crisis, they started nationalizing its banks and other private sector industries, which in turn made very hard for investments to take place. However, in 1980s, Pakistan again denationalized its banks and private sectors. It showed some sort of growth in its GDP, but again, in 1990s, economic growth started slowing down. One of the reasons for this fall was India. In the year 1991, India introduced its LPG policy, which was liberalization, privatization, and globalization, which provided better business environment, resulting in exodus of many investments to India from Pakistan, despite Pakistan being close to US and India to USSR. Lack of reforms and overspending on military resulted in massive increase in Pakistan's debt to GDP ratio. This finally forced Pakistan into the cycle of debt trap. Currently, Pakistan has to take loans in order to pay its previous loans, and big portion of that loan repayment happens for external debt. Pakistan external debt is rising at fast pace, and in fact it has almost doubled since 2015 from $62 billion to $127 billion, compared with previous year of 2020, which was $114 billion. This crisis has become more worse due to pandemic and low tax collection. According to State Bank of Pakistan, country paid $11.9 billion in external debt and debt servicing. This money could have been used for building infrastructure and creating jobs for skilled and semi-skilled workers. Foreign reserves of Pakistan is also falling, as Pakistan is trapped in window of $20-30 billion of exports every year, with scale of imports increasing every year. This has created a trade deficit which is not in position to reduce in near future. This has forced Pakistan to rely on foreign remittance for its foreign reserves. Over the decades, Pakistan has borrowed billions from several institutions and countries like IMF, World Bank, Saudi Arabia, and China, respectively. Out of all these concerns, biggest concern for Pakistan is its overdependence on China. China has invested billions in CPEC, China-Pak Economic Corridor, which is on the verge of collapse. CPEC is part of China's BRI project, which aims at connecting Africa and Europe to China for trade. CPEC is important for China because it reduces its dependency on Strait of Malacca, as it's considered as choking point of China's trade. CPEC is aimed at building dams, roads, and improving overall infrastructure of Pakistan, especially its connectivity. By the end of 2020, these projects were of more than $62 billion. Despite all these heavy investments by China, nothing much has changed in Pakistan. Europe, US, and many other political analysts have shown serious concerns over China's BRI projects. These projects have been used as a weapon by China in order to put countries in debt trap and increase its sphere of influence. Example, Sri Lanka, Africa, Central Asia, and Pakistan. Yes, Pakistan too. Pakistan has already given its Gwadar port to China for 40 years on lease as it couldn't pay back the loans. According to some reports, more than 90% of profits earned through CPEC goes to China. Moreover, even workers working in these projects are Chinese and not Pakistanis. It's estimated that there will be 500,000 Chinese by the end of 2025 to 2027 in southwest part of Pakistan, which is known as Balochistan. So the question is, what Pakistan can do in order to come out of this crisis and avoid bankruptcy? Well, Pakistan has to cut down its military spending, as Pakistan's military has given diminishing returns over decades. Pakistan needs good program for its debt restructuring. Currently, more than 1/3 of Pakistan's Federal Reserve goes on repayment of debts, which is nowhere close to a good sign, especially for a developing country. Pakistan is also accused of money laundering and terror financing issues. Because of this, Pakistan is in grey list of FATF. It's estimated that Pakistan has lost more than $35 billion since its entry in FATF. This has made foreign investors to move away from investing in Pakistan. So Pakistan has to make sure that it comes out from FATF by fulfilling all the required criterias. Coming to the brighter side, Pakistan holds strong capacity to grow. An average age of Pakistani citizen is just 22, which can help Pakistan in creating its industrial base by increasing productivity and improving consumer sector. This country has another advantage of getting massive foreign remittance. However, it's not good in medium to long term, but could be very helpful in short run. Finally, we can conclude that Pakistan still has time to catch the train of opportunities and come out of its cycle of debt trap, but it requires high level of internal restructuring in its political, economic as well as social spectrum. Will Pakistan bring all these changes? Well, only in future we can come to know. By the way, what are your views on this country? Let us know in comment section. And if you liked my video, then like, share and subscribe to my channel. Until then, stay happy and keep smiling.